All right, I'll do quick introductions of these guys, and then they'll give you their full stories. We've got Steve Weissman, the principal at Hawley Group, and the InfoGov guy, trademark. Yeah.
Oh, he did do that.
He did.
Yeah.
That actually happened. He's on top of these things. The rest of us are left behind. We've got Rich Lowers, now at Micro Focus,
Yep.
Formerly of
Trademark
HP, trademarked as well, with the space. And we have Jeff Ullman from Chemtura. No, you changed your name as well.
It's now Lanxess, yeah.
Lanxess. Both of them have changed company names in the last 6 months, so it's too much for me.
Not through marriage, just through change, yeah.
Yeah. All great folks, and I'm sure this will be a really informative and fun session.
Welcome. We're going to talk about change management, which nobody likes. Who has children or grandchildren or nieces, nephews, little ones?
Do cats count?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Because you well know how much of a challenge it is to get them basically to do your bidding. And let's face it, when it comes to information governance, a big part of our jobs is to get other people to do our bidding, right? It's very much this. How do you get people to do things that you know is good for them that they just don't want to do, right? So eat your vegetables, shut off your phone is a good one. We finally had to go to a place where there was no cell tower for 30 miles to get that one to work. It's called the High Desert of Arizona. I heartily recommend it. So, I'm a consultant in the field, and like the old IBM commercial used to say, right? I'm a consultant, I don't actually do anything. There, you get more coffee, more something.
Better joke.
Better jokes. Well, you get what you pay for. These two guys actually do stuff. I mean, they get dirty with the technology in a way that I don't because it scares me. So I ask them for help because I'm not as dumb as I look. So Rich, if you wouldn't mind, give me a few well-chosen words on your background. And then, Jeff, it'll be your turn, but I would like to start with sort of a high-level view of what your story is, because Rich and I were blown away on the phone hearing about the kind of stuff that Jeff was wrestling with. And this gives you a chance to sweat it a little bit.
I'm Rich Lowers with Micro Focus. I'm what they call their subject matter expert, or SME, or SHME, depending on where you're from, for information governance. I've been doing information governance since Y2K. We talked about this story. And I enjoy it tremendously. My role at Micro Focus is primarily to assist customers in the implementation and leveraging of automation when it comes to a lot of the policies and processes that they put together, sometimes by themselves, sometimes with esteemed colleagues like Mr. Weissman, and really put organizations in a position where they can automate the things that they want to do and only have to manage exceptions manually, right? That's kind of my goal. So far I've been doing it for a long time.
Okay. My name is Jeff Ullman. I work in the in-house legal department at Chemtura, which is now Lanxess. I started there in 2007 as a litigation paralegal, then was promoted to records manager. From there, I was able to somehow convince the GC that manager of information governance sounded like had a good ring to it, and ended up adjusting my role and scope to the ends of the earth, and subsequently try to roll out an ECRM program to 3,000 people across the globe, which is
from a time frame perspective. What time frame are you talking about?
so it was approximately around 2010, and the reason for the rollout, or really the business case for the rollout, was we had just emerged from bankruptcy, and we shed a ton of liability. And mostly all of our lawsuits were settled through the bankruptcy, and we no longer needed to keep a ton of information on legal hold anymore. And it was time to start to clean up and restructure our unstructured information. So,
Okay.
yeah, there's the premise.
Here's the premise. So here's I think the question that we all are here to find the answer to. How did you get people to do that? Can only assume that the people you were dealing with are like a lot of the people I'm sure you're dealing with, who may understand at a high level, yeah, okay, this makes sense, but when it comes time to actually do stuff, to actually get rid of the paper or start some sort of an electronic process, not so much. So how did you talk them into it? How did you get them to eat their vegetables? Did you bury a records management pill in their food? Tell me how that worked.
Yeah, so we ultimately didn't in the first phase for the most part. We failed miserably. And I think it was both not only just how we were going about the change, but also not adapting to some of the external forces that were going on. We were kind of leaning out. We were selling parts of our business. People were not willing or able to contribute and be the change champions we needed them to be. And we were doing something really against the grain of the company, or at least in the culture-wise, which was really getting them to, instead of having technology, have them adapt the technology that they wanted, we were putting in front of them an interface that we wanted them to use no matter what. And we really tried, in the beginning to have some workshops, and we ended up having our messages crossed, and we learned from that mistake over the course of 2 years. And we took the opportunity when we sold a good portion of our business to refocus and kind of brand the effort. Yeah,
Chime
go
in
ahead.
real quick. So, a couple of things that when Steve and I heard this story really came to top of mind. Number one is they had a change event, right? They had a significant thing that was happening in the organization that caused them to want to go to an automated system, right? The ability to dissolve a lot of legal holds, especially if it's something that was a significant burden to the organization. That's big. That's a really big deal, and that's a great thing to try and take advantage of that. But then when we heard this story, Steve and I also heard of the three-legged stool of success when it comes to this really being kind of wobbly, right? In that technology was the point of the spear as opposed to business process change, or as opposed to adding value or reducing work effort or productivity or some of the other things that really need to be in balance in order for a successful program. So really to talk about the problem a little bit, it was eat your vegetables, not let's introduce you to a healthy lifestyle. Let's introduce you to feeling better, with yourself, or feeling better in the morning. It was out of balance, so to speak. And it's really interesting that you guys recognize that, because some organizations, and I can say this from experience, even when it's failing, still turn it into a hammer and just beat the hell out of people with compliance or with other regulatory issues or with legal issues. And you can only force compliance for so long, but commitment to values, commitment to an organizational change like the spinoff that you're talking about for the next phase is something that is more long term, right? It's more ingrained into the people side of it, and it really takes that three-legged stool and can put it in balance. So tell a little bit about the success that you've had.
Okay. Yeah, so once we realized that we can't force the technology and kind of basically say you do this or you're fired type of thing, we really kind of put that technology in the background, but also was able to add a couple of really, what do you want to say? Yeah. Well, we had third-party features that adapted to the way people worked, and that included, using mobile devices and being able to integrate the technology through their email, which is everybody wanted. And So it really became a no-brainer for the user because it just made it better for them to work. And we weren't forcing those rules and having them learn the terminology that we were really trying to define every aspect of this tool because it was so foreign. And that that change in strategy and then taking it more of an incremental approach and having the users give a lot of feedback through the process and building that leeway in with our executives was really the key to the success in the end. So.
I'm gonna let you guys chat.
Yeah,
Yeah, go.
I mean, and like I said, Steve and I talked about this after we heard your story. Number one is, again, a significant change event that you were leveraging, but also the ability for you to go ahead and talk about how you went to the business first, right? In the second go-around, how you enabled business processes from an efficiency standpoint, how you got feedback from them and turned that into change in how you were deploying the application, how you were leveraging the taxonomy of the business as opposed to forcing them to learn a new language. These, again, talk about that three-legged stool, people, process, and technology, that again shows a lot more balance, right? It's an approach where you're ingrained into the business and you're adding value as a part of that process. And from a change management perspective, it brings people along faster, right? Again, pulling out the compliance hammer and not using that any longer, but pulling out more of a productivity and more of a value add. And from a cycle time perspective, did you notice anything different in your adoption rate or your conversion processes when you were going with the new program?
I'm not sure I understand.
So was it easier?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As we really kind of started hitting the sweet, like I would say the sweet spot, but when we really found that people were adopting, and we had some people that really wanted to be a part of it, we really leveraged those people, and it was easy to leverage them in their own departments and organizations. But then we really wanted to take care to really make this a global success. We really want to be able to take that message overseas. And we went kind of above and beyond with translation and training. And we really wanted to get it into, which is something that we never did before, is translate a lot of this stuff into the local languages. And then overseas, by doing something that they haven't seen before, was kind of a new vehicle of communication. And showing our effort that we really want to make this work for everybody. I think that really kind of infected the organization with some positive news.
That is an excellent term, right? So you're talking about it from a infected, right? You're talking about being able to use change agents within the areas that you're rolling out to. The ability for an organization to choose its own path, or choose the when, or choose the how, or affect the process is a significant part of success when it comes to these. And I see a lot of people shaking their heads. Yes, that feedback loop, and we had talked about this a little bit earlier, and I've seen this in ECM programs, is a critical process, not only for getting better feedback from your business, but for getting them committed to it in the process. Right? There's nothing like a suggestion box, right? In fact, we got one for the conference, right? Suggestion, let's add water to the conference instead of just coffee. That kind of feedback is critical, right? That kind of feedback really engenders not only a cycle of positive process improvement, but commitment. If somebody is listening to me when I'm giving feedback and they even just say it back to me, my own idea, and say, that's a great idea, we'll go ahead and take it under consideration. Even if I never see it again, I'm in. I'm committed, right? And that commitment is a critical part of the change management. I think the other critical part that you mentioned was doing something different, right? Well, so if you're going to have a failure, learn from it, right? Learn from it in a way that allows you to change your program going forward to do it better, faster, or hopefully give you another chance for success. One of the things that we see in a lot of programs when they roll out is that they're afraid to do something because they don't want to fail. It's okay to make a mistake. Just do it in a small enough scale so that you're learning from it. And I've done this, right? I've rolled out programs where I said, hey, we're going to give you file folders and email. Let's go ahead and just put the right emails in the right folder. That was crazy. I don't know what I was thinking. People did the dump and run and put, the wrong emails wherever they keep it longer. I learned from that, learned to leverage automation, learned to leverage, processes that the business was already using. And that's the same thing that you kind of mentioned. From a go-forward perspective, do you see your program bringing another kind of phase into it as you kind of grow into it, or do you think that it's more kind of in the care and feeding phase, or where are you right now as far as your program?
Yeah, so this is a real interesting time for me professionally. In April, we were purchased by Lanxess AG, so the culture is primarily is headquartered out of Germany. It's a totally different mindset, honestly. It's a culture shock, I think, for everybody. We're all learning from each other. We're all chugging along, but the company that I was with was very focused on consolidating and leaning out. Now we're thrust into the throes of growing and being able to expand but the thinking as far as in our company now, there's even more of a need for conversation between the CIO, the CFO, the GC, and our businesses. Whereas when I was sitting in headquarters, I was able to make those rounds fairly quickly, right? Now there's 3 or 4 different levels in this company, and there's a lot of folks that you really need to build a pretty strong business case to do something that we did before. But that doesn't mean we can't make inroads, and that doesn't mean that we can't do our site or our region and make some changes that way. So what's really going to be interesting is that we're in integration phase right now, and they're on a different email system than we are, and we have a lot of kind of feeds that we built over the past 10 years. So when it comes, that conversation is going to come up pretty quick, and it already is creeping up with the GDPR on how are we going to manage some of these integration problems.
First, I have to say, I just looked through the camera. You guys look awesome. All right, somebody, finally, thank you very much. Okay, I want to go back to something, Jeff, that you said just a little bit ago, and we all chuckled when you talked about, okay, we want people to do this or else you're fired. I'm actually of the belief that at a certain point, at a certain level of resistance, that's not a bad message. Not to be heavy-handed about it, but good cop doesn't work unless there's a bad cop or the threat of a bad cop, right?
That's my wife. Yeah.
And we're back to the, okay, yeah, I was going to say, we're back to the parenting thing. So for me, and whatever answer you might have had, I bet would be really different now that you have a new owner, so to speak. Yeah, a new cop. But for me, when I'm working with my clients, I'm always trying to at least get them to look a little bit longer term. So this just becomes a way, this is how we do business here. You don't swear at your customers. Here's the card so you can get in the building. It's just part of orientation, right? And to, over time, work it into, for companies that still do this sort of thing, make it a criterion of your annual performance review. Whatever the metrics are, I mean, it opens up a whole different can of worms. But there has to be some measure of accountability, even if it's, well, and again, I go back to the parenting thing, because like, you can't play with your friends until your room is clean. Guess how quickly the room gets cleaned, or at least everything that shows is clean. So, well, we're not supposed to do questions, but if you have, make it a statement. Oh, here.
No,
Read that bit. Is that we're out of time or almost? 8. Okay.
I was just going to say in regards to that, I mean, do you think that maybe to start out, you need sort of that base level of compliance. So you kind of need to take a hard line in the beginning to get sort of over the hump of, to a level where it's at least from a regulatory perspective or whatever compliant. And then, but if you really want high performance, then you kind of have to use the carrot and not the stick. Like, I think people will do just enough if you kind of use the threat of you're fired. That'll get you to compliance, but it might not get you to like an excellence type level.
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of sounding like every other consultant on the planet, it really does depend. It depends on the culture you're coming from, the seniority perhaps, or habit of whoever it is you're dealing with. Sometimes the best way is to work around them and then to let the peer pressure go to work. But maybe you have thoughts. Here, you guys fight, wait, you guys fight it out. I'm putting it in the middle.
So, one of the things that I think Jeffrey's going to find very quickly is that the new organization will have a different culture and a different leverage spot, right? You'll find a different opportunity. And let's talk about data privacy and GDPR. That could be your other opportunity. Many customers that I talked to today, that is their opportunity. They may think that they have very little issues related to it, but suddenly data privacy is top of mind, and they're using it as a means for funding change, right? They're using it as a means for setting something on fire so everybody's worried, right? Or being able to say, oh, by the way, if you're really concerned about this, let me show you how information governance and how what we do adds value to classification and categorization of the content and clear identification of those materials related to privacy and those materials that have a superseding rule or regulation that enable us to keep it. And, turn it into that value add conversation and show, number one, that you can bring some value to the table and break out of those information silos that the new culture is kind of focusing in on. And also really just to show them that you're understanding that there's a difference and there's a change and you can still add value. I mean, that's the greatest part about our job and our careers is that we can add value to almost any business process, to almost any category of information and hopefully, bring our business partners to a position where they call us and ask us for help and truly look for us as consultants and partners in that change. Good luck.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the job was being able to really kind of jump on the bandwagon of some of the process strengths that we had as a company and also jump on the bandwagon of other related initiatives. We had a continuous improvement initiative that was really pushed hard by our CEO at the time. Kind of jumped on that bandwagon, got on that list of one of the projects that we want to push through. We had our HR group put on way back when a change management training. So we jumped on the bandwagon. Hey, can we get involved with that too? This is part of change, right? We had, what else do we have? We had so many opportunities that you wouldn't think, that's not my project, but you could reach out to HR, you could reach out to the project management, if you have a project management office or team, to get some of, just get on their agenda, even if it's for a half an hour. Going back to performance reviews, so while we never thought of putting information governance or any of these ECRM, like in general, on their performance reviews. What we did was we did find that when we were trying to consolidate information and each department needed to be involved, we didn't want that to be voluntary. And no matter how much we pushed communications out through email or we put it on our infonet or our internal site, we weren't seeing behind the scenes any kind of progress. So we did end up technologically like starting to block things, but also through a communication process, but also in the performance goals for that year is to say these departments need to meet these milestones, which ended up really being the prerequisite for us to achieve a lot of the different things. Right? Yeah, yeah. The measuring was really important for us. We really wanted to have a dashboard as we reported up to a steering team, and the project team could have metrics to be proud of, and we could really kind of celebrate our successes. So.
Do you have a closing slide?
I don't have a closing slide. Well, I do. It says the end. Thanks for coming. But the end, thanks for coming. I celebrate them, and Jeff in particular, who may do most of the talking.
Yeah, his story, when Steve and I started talking to him on the phone, we both were just like blown away. Not only because to see a program actually get restarted with success as a part of this work, that's an incredible kind of story to tell. Like I said, I've been that guy who had a really hard time with the program and really, thought for sure that this is it, I'm gonna get fired. That a restart and being able to restart with success, I think is an incredible achievement. And it that, when we talked about change management, the changes that you made to your program to be able to achieve it in the restart, I mean, that's the key learning for all of us when it comes to kind of these programs.
Right up through movie reference, okay?
Yeah.
Is Pi in here?
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah.
Never give up, never surrender,
Yep.
right? Because that's what you guys did. And for me, this isn't, I'd buy a cake, but, I don't have time. But truly, I think Rich and I agree, we wanted you to hear Jeff's story in particular because it has all those elements. The common thread for all of us is we're dealing with people. And people don't like to change. I don't like to change. And you found a way. And now with new ownership, you have to take it up. You got to find it, you got to extend that way and maybe literally translate it. I dearly wish we could have questions here, but we're going to be around, and at the end of the day, there's more. So please don't be shy, and indeed, thank you for coming.